Hello, how are you doing? Welcome back to Rule of Two Review, guys. It is, of course, good to see your faces. Today, we're going to be talking about Super Mario Run. So, of course, Super Mario Run released on Apple products a couple of weeks ago. I've downloaded it on my iPhone 7 and on my iPad mini that I have, just to kind of give it a shot and try the little trial run of 3 levels that they allow you to do before actually purchasing the game if you want to. And since then, Super Mario Run has been in the news for some really great news, for some not so good news, recently for some weird news about the Android thing, which I'll get to in a minute near the end of the video. But what I wanted to discuss is what's happening with the download and sell rate of Super Mario Run, because it was first reported in the first few days that Super Mario Run was a smash hit. It had like 30 or 40 million downloads in the first day or two, which was like insane. It was like the fastest download app in history on the iPhone store. And it was making all this positive press, and it seemed really great. I was really happy for Nintendo in this game, which I really didn't have too much of an interest in, and still kind of don't have much of an interest in. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it turns out that, in typical Nintendo fashion, they found a way to be really successful and garner a bunch of news and attention and press from doing something new that they had previously never done. That's atypical for Nintendo, so good on them. And then, after that first probably week when it seemed like Super Mario Run was this massive hit, and everyone was downloading it, and there was some sort of number of around $5 million, $15 million. I should have looked up the numbers. Darn it. That they actually made from that first week or so of downloads. And it seemed like it was on track to basically make a bunch of money, even though I don't have the hard number here in front of me. So my bad. And I was like, that's great. And then after that first week, all of a sudden it started to sound like, well, maybe it's not doing so well because maybe 40 million people downloaded Super Mario Run, but not that many people are actually purchasing it. So pretty interesting news. I guess that what I'm hearing is that for every 100 people that downloaded the game, the free demo of the game, only a handful, 1 or 2 people maybe out of every 100 are actually purchasing the game, the full game at the $9.99 price tag that it has. And so people are seeing that as a pretty big bomb. It's suddenly not making all this money. A lot of us may know that in that first couple of days when it downloaded like crazy, Nintendo's their stock still dropped by like a good couple points, which seemed completely ridiculous to myself and a lot of other people who admittedly probably don't trade stock. I certainly don't. I barely understand the investment field, despite the fact that I actually work in a financial industry. That's not really my bag and my area of expertise. So it's like, well, I mean, I'm not an expert in trading stock, but at the same time, a successful company releases a brand new product that is really successful. Why are we not trusting in the company so much that we want to continue to invest in it? I don't know. It was a really dumb thing. But that's what was happening. And then you hear these number of, only 2 out of every 100 people are actually paying for the game. So suddenly, Super Mario Run doesn't seem to be such a monetary success as it initially seemed. And of course, through this, all of the doomsayers and the naysayers are saying that, this means that Nintendo, their venture into mobile is a failure. Like right off the bat, everyone's already ready to write them off as they shouldn't be doing this. Super Mario Run is a failure. Nintendo can't make it in the mobile market. And I will give it to some people in the sense that, yeah, it's obviously not the hit it initially seemed, which is too bad. I would have thought going into the release of Super Mario Run with all of the press and all of the hype and the fact that it actually did look like a pretty good game and the fact that the Jimmy Fallon Mario Run thing went very well, even if it was overshadowed by the Switch, I would have certainly thought that it would have been a huge hit, commercially and monetarily. But apparently that's not the case, and that is too bad, and that's maybe Nintendo goofed up a little bit with how they released the game, how they advertised it, and how they structured it in terms of you get so much for free, but then the full game is priced at $10 for what seems like not a whole lot of content, a lot of different factors going in there. So I agree with part of that, but at the end of the day, let's look at the facts. This is not a colossal failure, and this in no way does it possibly spell doom for Nintendo in the mobile market. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. It's just my opinion as somebody who is, definitely not an expert, my opinion on what this means as far as Super Mario Run not making all that much money and being the hit that it initially seemed. And if it really means that Nintendo might be doing the wrong things in the mobile market, does this mean that they're going to have to, bow out of the mobile market? Or does this maybe mean good things for Nintendo going forward? Because that's really what I'm thinking here. So if we look at the fact that Nintendo released their first actual game Pokemon Go was a unique scenario because of Niantic and how much of a game it is and isn't. And then, of course, Miitomo was more of like a social networking thing than an actual true game. Super Mario Run is their first game using their most prolific, most well-known, and most profitable mascot. Now, if anything, what can we take away from it that's positive? Well, it's definitely strengthened Nintendo and Mario's brand. 40 to 50 million people downloading this thing, whether they're buying it or not. They're paying attention to Nintendo. They're being reminded that Nintendo is around, they're still relevant, they're making products, they're getting their name out there, they're creating games. People are still playing these first 3 levels. I've played these first 3 levels, and they are very good for being a mobile game, so I think people are still seeing, hey, Nintendo makes quality stuff. That's great to see. So it's doing that, and it's reminding people, like I just said, that Nintendo is relevant and they're around. And that is important right now because Nintendo is doing stuff in the mobile market. And of course, because the Nintendo Switch is just around the corner, that's part of why a company like Nintendo would branch into this new market, is to strengthen the brand. It's not just to make money off of mobile games. It's also to get Nintendo's name out there again and make it as big as it was back like in the 80s and 90s when they were the kings of the hill in terms of gaming and in like technology entertainment. So they're trying to rebuild that brand back up. And if anything, even if it's not making money hand over fist, it's probably A, not losing money. I would have to think it's not losing money. And B, it's getting Nintendo out there and into people's homes and their lives and their hands and their pockets. And that's one of the things that Nintendo is trying to achieve. The other thing that's happening here that I think is a positive and something that would hopefully help people not want to spell such doom and gloom for Nintendo venturing into the mobile market here is, if anything, they are learning a lot here. Because I think it's fair to say that when you look at a mobile gaming experience, charging $9.99 even for a Mario game is probably too much. At least it seems that way. I don't have much of a gauge on it because I don't really buy or play mobile games. Like I said, I don't have any mobile games on my phone except for Super Mario Run now, which again I haven't even paid for yet. I haven't had a mobile game on my phone in probably 4 or 5 years. I don't even remember the last time I put a game. It would have been like the Jump Doodle game, which I freaking love that thing. That was probably the last game that I had on my phone. Seriously, it's been that long. So I'm not the perfect experts to gauge this, but I feel like $10 was probably too much. Maybe teasing people with a few levels, it seemed like a right idea, but maybe it's not because it makes people realize, well, I got a couple. They download it and they're like, oh, I got a couple levels to play. They play those few levels, and it doesn't really make you feel like you have to buy something new, that you have to go to the next step. And it's like, well, I want to do what's next. I need to pay the $10, you know. Obviously, there's some elements to this model that I think is good, because by doing it this way, there's no advertisements, there's no microtransactions, there's none of that other, pop-up spammy bullshit that comes with typical mobile apps and mobile games. Nintendo's able to just dominate this thing and create it the exact way they want. They don't need help from anyone else, so it's literally a complete Nintendo experience only. None of that other garbage is like mulling up what you're actually interacting with as you're playing Super Mario Run. And I do think that that's great. But the price is kind of what offsets that. Is, in order for them to afford to do that, they had to sell this thing for $10. Obviously, that's a big barrier of entry for a lot of people, especially the casual mobile player who doesn't really understand core games and core gaming companies. So Nintendo didn't quite understand that, it seems like, or they took a gamble and it's not really paying off the way they want, it seems. So what I think might be happening is Nintendo is, like I started to say, learning a lesson here. You guys have to remember that when these things happen with any company in the gaming industry or any company in any industry, when stuff like this happens, part of what they're doing is also research. So now Nintendo was able to say, hey, this is what we tried with what should have been our biggest success. It's not making the money we want. It's not the success we want, but we're still invested in this mobile thing. Pokemon Go is going to keep on going. We know Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem are coming soon. They're going to probably continue to do a lot of mobile things. Now they've basically learned, what are the best ways to do this? What does the mobile market really look for? What are they willing to pay for? How can we make money in the future but still make it a good, experience for people that's valuable for what they would be paying? Do we want to go into the microtransaction market? Please don't do that, Nintendo. Oh my freaking God. But maybe they would consider that. Who knows? A plethora of things they're probably looking at. So what they're doing now is they're just taking notes. Like, this worked, this worked, this worked, this didn't, this didn't, this didn't. So let's do more of these things that worked and do less of these things that didn't for our next games, i.e. Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem and whatever else comes after that. So all in all, what I'm trying to say here is it is a shame that Nintendo sort of dropped the ball with Super Mario Run, so it seems. It's unfortunate they weren't able to make it the hit that they wanted to so far. It may pick up steam or change down the road, who even knows. In fact, Nintendo might even change some things like the price or the amount of content you get for the price soon to try to get people more interested in Super Mario Run. Obviously, though, there's been a lot of mistakes with it, and that is too bad. But make no mistake, I think Nintendo is smart enough of a company to have learned properly, just like a lot of us think they might have done with the Wii U going into the Switch, and they can make better business decisions for their mobile market going forward. And that's going to be my hope, because even though I don't really care about the mobile market, even from Nintendo, I do want to see them succeed at this. So hopefully they can fix these mistakes and make it better. The last thing I wanted to touch on, I referenced in the beginning of the video surrounding Super Mario Run, is apparently this Android deal where now it's also in the news because this pre-registration for Android developers for Super Mario Run have now showed up. So I think it's like a job application posting thing. You guys can tell me if you know any more about it than I do, which obviously isn't all that much. It seems like Nintendo is trying to say, hey, we need people who can help develop and code our stuff for Androids. So what I also think might be happening, sort of as a reaction to Super Mario Run's lack of monetary success, is they might be kind of steamrolling towards that Android release sooner than later. Whereas maybe before it was going to be 6, 7, 8 months, maybe even a year of exclusivity to Apple products. Maybe they're going to make that happen way, way sooner, like in the next couple of months or within the first 6 months of the release, so that they can start to gain back some of that money and maybe maybe enhance their audience and grow their audience. Because right now, maybe limiting it to just the Apple audience isn't really paying off the way they wanted as well. Something else they might have been taking notes on so as to maybe not do that next time with their next games like Animal Crossing or Fire Emblem. I do have to say, though, again, having played a little bit of Super Mario Run, I do think it's really cool what they've done. It is fun. It does feel Mario-esque enough, despite the fact that it's a runner with just like a touchscreen kind of play style. And it made me really start to realize, oh, this is how Nintendo makes mobile games. This is different than mobile games, most mobile games. And it's good, like it's quality, and now I understand Nintendo's thinking, so I start to imagine what the Animal Crossing and Fire Emblem games would be like, specifically the Animal Crossing one, and I can see them doing really wonderful things and really great gameplay experiences in the mobile market with those properties. Again, especially Animal Crossing. Seeing what they did with Pokemon Go, which I know is Niantic really as well, and Super Mario Run, I think that Nintendo's really figuring out the best way to make gameplay work on cell phones and tablets. And it does have me excited for what they're going to try in the future. And as soon as they try something on the Metroid side, if it looks good, then I'll be buying in for sure. So, I don't know, guys. It's pretty weird. It's a surprise. It's like Super Mario Run is both extremely successful and made headlines, and at the same time not successful in the way it was anticipated. So where does it actually fall? Where do we look at Super Mario Run's launch in the grand scheme of things? Maybe we need some time and some perspective, and 6 months, a year down the road, after it's released on Android, we might get a better idea. And, the fortunes of Super Mario Run may change. Nintendo is smart. Maybe they find a way to do that. Maybe they don't, and they have to just chalk it up as a loss. And like I said, learn from their mistakes and make better choices with their mobile stuff going forward. So what do you think about Super Mario Run not making all that much money right out of the gates? Do you think that my theory about them learning from this and doing better with mobile stuff going forward because of the the lack of success with Super Mario Run, do you think that makes any sense, or am I totally crazy? You guys tell me what you think below. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in. This is probably the second to last video before the end of the year. So next time I'll be having a Happy New Year message for you guys. So thanks, of course, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Relative Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.